Hi guys, Olive here today to bring you the next installment in my Wishbone series. If you've never seen me do one of these videos, what I do is watch one episode of the 90s PBS Kids TV show Wishbone and compare it against the work of classical literature discussed within it. And then I ask questions of the episode I just watched. Does it do the book justice? What kind of moral messages were the showrunners trying to coax out of that work of literature to then communicate to the very young audience of the show? And, most importantly, does it make an entertaining episode of television? In this video, I'll be taking on the episode in which they discuss The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins in an episode entitled Moonbone. So here we go. What's the story, Wishbone? What's the story, Wishbone? This episode starts off with what else? A full moon. And although one of these happens every 30 days with little consequence, apparently they've been affecting Wishbone in a way that we haven't found out about until deep into the second season. The full moon puts him into some kind of trance, and we see him frantically burying Wanda's gardening tools. We're also told that things keep going missing around the house. Coincidence? I think not. This episode also has some excitement lingering in the air, although it has nothing to do with the lunar calendar. Football star Daryl "Moose" Johnston is in town as part of a tour showing off NFL memorabilia and to promote reading. Way to go, Moose. One of the items on display? His shiny Super Bowl ring. I'm sure you see where this is going. The kids go to meet Moose and to take a gander at his display, but not long after they leave, they get a very distressing phone call that Super Bowl ring has disappeared. This acts as a segue into the story of the Moonstone, both the title of the classic and the name of a brilliant yellow diamond, a sacred gem taken from India, then much later inherited by a young girl named Rachel from her uncle, to be delivered to her on her birthday as specifically instructed in his will. Wishbone plays the main character of the Moonstone, Franklin Blake, who is Rachel's intended, hence why he is trusted to stealthily transport the Moonstone ahead of Rachel's birthday. But that shiny diamond in his pocket is not the only thing that makes him eye-catching, apparently. The maid of the house is immediately intrigued by him. But the morning after Rachel receives the stone, she discovers it has gone missing. And now everyone inside the house, and a few others outside the house, are suspects. But when the police come to investigate, people inside the house start acting very strangely, especially Rachel. Even though the diamond was taken from her, it seems like she's interfering in the investigation. Like she doesn't want it to be found. Slowly, it comes to light that a familiar face may have been responsible. That individual is instructed to reenact the events of that fateful evening to try to see if it can happen all again to figure out what happened. The most common advice you'll get when something goes missing is to retrace your steps and see if it shows up. So this is precisely what the kids back in the real life storyline do, because they are feeling so guilty that they are the last ones who saw Moose's Super Bowl ring before it went missing. In these videos, I do my absolute best not to spoil the enjoyment of the show or the book for you, so let's just say both of these storylines have a resolution. One is a little bit more predictable than the other. But what I can go into is a discussion of what kind of a job the show did bringing this story to life. I will say that they managed to squeeze a lot of exposition into a very tiny space. There seem to be a lot of different people who are watching Franklin Blake and the stone very closely. A lot of different people have different motives for why they would want to get their hands on it. Financial troubles, jealousy. There's also a lot more sophisticated camera work in this one, although there is one scene where you can very prominently see a boom mic. It's also been my experience with the show that the acting in this very abbreviated second season is far better than the first. The show does give a really good sense of the intrigue and the tension present in the book, but there's a lot of glazing over that happens. Not that I expect kids to understand conversations about self-harm or opium use, but their absence is pretty noticeable once you've read the book. Leaving those two things out of the episode seems to be really the only moral message that happens in it. Besides giving kids the wrong impression that reenacting a situation will cause things to go exactly the same way they did the first time, there's really no moral message to this episode. But just like in the episode where they took on Shakespeare's The Tempest, it seems like they were more trying to cultivate interest and establish mood more than anything else. And they were successful in that. The Moonstone has a great mystery, and if this episode of television was my first introduction to the story, I would definitely want to go on and read the novel. But what the show didn't have, or rather didn't have time for, was the full cast of characters. Wilkie Collins really excels at writing unique, memorable characters, and we only get a fraction of them here. He uses these characters to their fullest with his multi-narrative approach, but that kind of thing just would not have been possible with such an abbreviated take. As successful as I found the episode, there were just too few references to Robinson Crusoe to make this a true adaptation of the Moonstone. To conclude this installment of What's the Story, Wishbone, I just have a couple of pressing questions that I know won't get answered, but I'm gonna ask them anyway. Number one, does no one notice that the dog is ripping up the yard? And number two, does this happen all the time? But I guess that fact does mean that Wishbone gets to act like more of a dog in this episode versus a literary character. That was pretty fun to watch, not gonna lie. So that was my take on this episode of Wishbone. If you have any comments or questions about anything you've seen in this video or about anything in general, please feel free to put that in the comment section below. Or if you would like to chat with me elsewhere, I am on a variety of different places on social media, and the links to all of my profiles are in the description box below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.
Funding for Wishbone provided by annual financial support from PBS viewers like you.